Hey, there's the man.
Jason, how you doing, brother?
Good. How are you, Chris?
I'm great.
You ready to get this podcast started or what?
Let's go. Let's go.
So, obviously, you've had a very impactful time, since you started with Supplement King, been making some crazy moves. Give us some insight on how you first started, got into the industry to where you are now.
Yeah, I've been entrepreneurial really since my early 20s, right? Like I never had a career to fall back on. I never really had much I didn't have any bridges to burn, right? So, I'm a high school dropout. Mom disappeared when I was 13. Dad had substance abuse issues, gambling issues, right? Suicidal. I was pretty much on my own 15, 16, right? So throughout my whole 20s, I didn't really have much to fall back on except for this entrepreneurial gig, right? So I started raising capital in my early 20s. By the time I was 25, I raised 10 million. Now, before you get too excited about that, I didn't really know how to make money personally from raising capital. My investors did really well, but I hadn't yet learned how to be a successful entrepreneur up to that point, right? So it wasn't until really like I'm 36 now, Jason. I bought my first Supplement King when I was 31, but we had already bought and sold multiple companies by that point. We had a company called We Buy Businesses throughout my whole 20s, and we were buying and selling companies. I had evaluated over 600 different businesses over my over my 20s, over a 10-year period. So, I say all this to say now, like obviously with Supplement King, that comes in 5 years ago. I started that. We have now store 10 and 11 opening up. And of course, Nutrabolics is a massive part of that. So I'm happy to be on the podcast, man. Whatever value I can be of, that's what my attempt is here today. So
Nice. So tell us a little bit about, for people out there who want to essentially become a successful entrepreneur, give us some tips. Like, what's been your go-to to sort of get to where you are from where you were raising capital to where you are now? Like, what have you been following? What's your sort of...
I I think psychology is something that fascinates me, right? I see a lot of people with all the best how-tos. You see it in the fitness industry as well, right? Some of the personal trainers and coaches, they're so knowledgeable. Their how-tos are like top tier, right? And you see that in the entrepreneurial realm all the time. You see that in pretty much every space, right? There are people that understand the how-tos to a top tier degree, but psychology, I think, is the underlying factor to performance, right? What is it? The Perform podcast? I think it's very fitting because performance psychology is a real thing. LeBron James doesn't jump onto a court with his, shoulders shrugged and he's feeling, I guess I'll go out there and make a couple shots. LeBron James has a structure to how he sets up his psychology before the lights turn on. And I think entrepreneurs, I see this in the entrepreneur realm, investor realm, personal trainers, coaches. You see this all the time, even with their clients, right? They have a client, they give them the best fitness plan. Here's your, your macros, your diet for the next 60, 90, 120 days, whatever it is. They have the best how-tos, but then they don't really focus on the client psychology, or at least their psychology might not be able to create a true transformation. So to me, through and through, the biggest factor in entrepreneurship and entrepreneur success is primarily psychology. I've seen some of the best investments turn to trash because of poor psychology.
So if I'm an entrepreneur watching this right now and I want to get my psychology locked and loaded, do I got to read a book? Do I got to take a course? What advice can you give?
Man, Jason, you know all this stuff, brother. You know all this stuff. I'm just a reminder.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm going to say anything spellbounding here today. I think just like fitness, like physical fitness, emotional fitness is the same thing, right? I think with physical fitness, it's a lifelong journey, right? You just don't work out for 6 months, get your six-pack abs, and then you're done, right? So I think it's constant learning every single day and trying to improve. It's I think it starts with immersion for any major transformation, right? I mean, you look at me, abandonment, and one parent like is disappeared, another parent literally cuts himself in front of me. That those are pretty intense emotional moments. So, I had to do some transformation for myself, some real personal transformation to move through those things, you know, and I think immersion's a big one. And today, with all the free stuff that you have on Google and YouTube, and that is helpful. But I think for there's seminars, webinars out there. There's so much tools accessible today at next to no cost. But it is immersion, right? Like it's just like if you're starting out at the gym, you there needs to be an emotional like transformation there, psychological transformation, and sometimes it's a negative experience too, right, Jason? I'm sure in your business and in your world you've had a negative moment happen, and then that was enough to emotionally have you commit to something else, right? So I'm not sure if I'm answering the question super well. I don't have anything to offer, but obviously I think there's a lot of free stuff on YouTube and Google, seminars, webinars galore. There's never been a more simpler, I'm not going to say the word easier, but a simpler way to make that transformation.
Nice. So you have 11 stores right now with Supplement King. And obviously, you started with your first store like everyone else. And give us some insight on what that was like when you first started your first store, how you kind of got it going, what you felt, and, kind of give us like the rundown of how you've now got to 11 stores. I mean, 11 stores is pretty impressive. I'll be honest with you, like, especially
Yeah, thanks.
time.
Well, I mean, we're not doing Nutrabolics numbers, but we're doing pretty good. We're doing pretty good. I mean, I appreciate I'm being facetious, but I appreciate the compliment. And I think, it's a good start. I'm really proud of the team and what we've done with 11 stores. It's a good start. Obviously, we have a path to 50 stores. We're very aggressive. We're opening up 4 stores in the next 3 months, right? Like we are ready to go. We are locked and loaded. But when it started 5 years ago, uh, again, right, my whole 20s, I'm raising capital, I'm trying to buy and sell companies, and I had evaluated over 600 companies by the time, my 30s came around. So when we ran into Supplement King, it was actually a pre-existing store. It was already open. It had a couple of years of good financial metrics. Also, I had been taking supplements and working out for like the last 20 years. I'm like, oh, okay, this fits my values. I love supplements. I love working out. Oh, and the financial metrics make sense. And, it's got a manager in place and systems and awesome. And Roger King, obviously, it goes without saying, he's probably the best in the industry at this in this space, right? So when it comes to supplement retailing, so all the factors aligned. It checked a lot of boxes, and for a lot of people that maybe are trying to struggle with like startups or buying a business or something like that, if the business has good metrics, the bank will line up. They'll give you all the money in the world, right? So uh, everything lined up for us. We bought our first store. We paid a pretty penny for it, but the second we opened up, we opened up our second store within 3 months, I believe, something like that. But we came in it with a different mindset. I know a lot of retailers have a one store operation, and that's fine. That's cool. That's what they want. That's what their expectation of their business is for them. But my expectation day one was, how do we scale this to 20, 30, 40, 50 million a year? That excites me more than anything else. And I'll pay myself minimum wage to do it, right? Like I'll do all the sacrificial things necessary to get to that scale, right? So I'm not sure if that answers the question, but for me, when we bought our first store, it was like, how do we get to like 30 stores ASAP, right?
So when you're growing, and you've decided to make this decision to obviously expand quickly, right? What makes you make a decision to expand? Like, can you give us some insight without giving away, too much? If there's any competitors watching, like, can you give us some insight on what makes you tick? Like, say, what are you looking for a new store, and how do you know when it's time to expand? Like, when you want to go from 11 to 15 stores, like what's some triggers, or what are some things that you start to, know when it's time to make a move?
Yeah, I feel this is a common gap for a lot of operators and entrepreneurs is they have a really good like next step. Hey, this year I want to do ABC. For us, we have 25-year goals, right? Like I think in 20-year windows. So then I back engineer from that, right? So I'm thinking like, man, what's Chris like at 61, right? And what is the organization doing? And then anything else that aligns with that 25-year goal, it makes it super easy to make these decisions, right? So like I noticed this with a lot of entrepreneurs, they're not thinking long term. And then I was at my barber, man, God bless him. He's a good dude. He's a good dude, but he doesn't know if he wants the back to be a luxury, barber shop, or, he does a podcast in the back. Like he doesn't know, but if he had a 25-year plan and he back engineered it from there, it would help make every decision in his business, I think, a little bit more efficiently,
Mm.
right? It doesn't guarantee anything by any means, but it definitely provides a context that allows you to make key decisions that aligns with the business long-term plan 25 years out. So when I talk to Roger about opening up the next 3 to 5 stores, there's not much to really, there's some small things, per market things, like demographic things that we look at, but my God, it's we've all the heavy lifting to me is the 25-year view and vision, and the back engineering from that.
Mm. I love the long-term thinking. I mean, I don't think 25 years. I mean, I usually think 10 years, and people think that's a long way. Like one of the things I always think 10 years about is stock investing.
Mm.
Whenever I buy stock, I want to hold it for 10 years. Or if I buy a piece of real estate, I want to hold it for 10 years, because I feel like the odds are in my favor if I hold it for 10 years versus trying to flip it and sell it. And based on, my history, it's worked out for me, but I love the 25 years. Like, I think that's genius. Was there somebody that inspired you to think 25 years? Like, where did that number come from, 25 years?
It's funny. I do it in my personal life too. I like back engineer stuff because I'm like, oh man, Chris at 61. I sure hope I'm like able to like go on a hike, and like if I have kids, me and my spouse have already talked about all this. It's not sure if he's paying attention, but look, uh, if I have kids, I want to be able to keep up with them, right? And so aging and longevity is a part of my workout routine, right? So that's huge for me. I want to optimize my time in that space. So it's all come from, I think, a few different mentors that I've had over my life. Um, I was fortunate enough in my early 20s to be around Robert Kiyosaki. I got to know him on a personal level, and for a couple of years, and I got some coaching, and I just saw how he viewed, when he did some of the roundtable. We had meetings with like roundtable discussions for his executives on his business plans, and he was thinking long term. He was strategically thinking, where does his Rich But Dad brand go in like 20 years? And that to me, I'm 22. That to me really hit. That really made an impact, and that was a habit that since then I've tried to bring along with me. And then, obviously in literature, as you read books, right? Vern Harnish with Scaling Up is a great example. Working on that BHAG, right? That 10 to 25-year BHAG goal. So I do it with everything, not just entrepreneurship and investing, but also with my health goals too, right? With my fitness goals and things of that nature. I don't want to be 61, 65, whatever that is, and immobilized, or at least, not as mobile as I could be.
Nice. Give us some insight about sort of, Nutrabolics, your relationship with the brand, and, like what products, you guys are kind of, getting behind, give us some feedback.
So here's my honest, okay. Jason, man, you and Rodney, can I rant on
Yeah.
this for a second? I'm ranting all this whole call anyway, but
Yeah.
so the truth is, whether you ask me to be on this podcast or not, I'd have a plethora of Nutrabolics products in my kitchen, right? So I've got HydroPure, right? I've got Supernova, I've got Anabolic State, I got Agro, I got Sleep Hack, Man, Vitabolic. I got it all, man. I got the full Nutrabolic stack in my kitchen, whether you ask me on the podcast or not. I've had it like that for the last 5, 6 years. So nothing's really changed, like I appreciate being a guest here today, but uh, this honestly, you guys have been so great to deal with. And I think the key thing I want to communicate with Nutrabolics and everyone listening today, Nutrabolics is so great at supporting at the local entrepreneurial level. Like I have to commend you and Rodney from the bottom of my heart, right? Like there's some supplement companies out there, and I'm not going to name names, and I'm not going to throw them even under the bus, right? Like they want to grow their business. I respect that. That's awesome. Like, how can I support you? Even if I'm being facetious when I say this, if you're going to sell it like a dollar store, like, I'm being facetious. Awesome, cool. How can I support your brand, right? In our stores, we're a retailer, right? And I get it. The wholesalers, they're trying to make revenue. They got a business. They got things. They got goals, right? That are irrelevant, like that I'm not privy to. So, if some vendors want to sell at a Canadian Tire, like, hey, all the power to you, right? How can we support? But then there's you guys. And I have to commend you guys, man. I'd give you a hug if I could, Jason. You and Rodney are so good at supporting us at the local level. And I just want everyone to know, when you go in and you buy a Nutrabolics product in a Supplement King location, you are supporting your local community. That's what you're doing, because how do we sponsor hockey teams? How do we sponsor athletes and do all of these things at the local level, right? Our charitable work, right? So we've donated to local charities. All this stuff really is hand in hand with our vendors and you guys lead the way, that support the retailers like you guys do. So tip of the hat to you, sir. I mean, I think you guys lead the way on supporting local entrepreneurs.
I appreciate that. What was your first Nutrabolics product?
HydraPure. Yeah,
Nice.
HydraPure. Yeah, it was you guys have a lot more flavors now, so it's awesome now. I mean, back then it was great, but I think, yeah, it was like chocolate, and then Supernova came along. That was the second product, and I just love the formula, man. It's been in the kitchen for years.
Yeah, well, you can actually thank me for those flavors that keep coming out, because I'm always pestering Rodney about like, so one fight we have is I'm always pushing for more flavors of HydraPure, and he's saying, "Oh, well, we gotta, wait a minute, let this flavor, let people try it," and I'm always slamming him with like, "Hey, we know we need to get as many flavors as we can." I mean, I think we're up to 12 flavors now.
Wow.
My goal is I'd like to have 24. So
Wow.
hopefully in the next little bit we're working on even some more flavors. We're just about to drop the Rocky Road any day now. So that's exciting.
Can't wait. Can't wait. And I have to say too, for anyone listening, like from an entrepreneur, when I hear that, Jason, I think as an entrepreneur, I'm like, man, the cash that it takes and the risk that it takes to go and launch a flavor, like to go from 12 flavors to 24 flavors, to have that kind of motivation and mindset, man. I love that. I love that so much. And I think that speaks to who you guys are. You guys are so innovative. And I love the brand, as you can tell, right? You guys mean so much to me. You ask me any day of the week, Jason. You ask me for a podcast, like guest, I'm on anytime. 2 a.m. I'll wake up. Let's go.
I actually first, kind of discovered you when I watched your video you did outside of your store. You guys did a great video on Nutrabolics, where you featured the HydraPure. I love that video. And I was like, this guy, like you and your partner there are great on camera. Like you get
Yeah.
great thing. Are you guys still doing those type of videos, or what, out front of the store?
I always say, like, we got a full-time marketing team now. And I always tell them, like, whatever the business needs, if the business needs me to be on camera and people get value from that, I will do that. So occasionally I do that. We test the metrics and everything, and it looks good. But it's been a hot minute since we did that. It might be worth bringing it back.
And for a Nutrabolics reunion out front of your store,
I'd
getting
Love that.
you the new feed bars and the HydroPure, because I think the video you guys did was the HydroPure and the feed bars. Now, obviously, I think we're up to 8 flavors of the feed and 12 flavors of the protein. So, could be time.
Yeah, and I think while I'm kissing ass here, Jason, nice work with the feed bars too. Like the coconut was like a home run, buddy.
Yeah, appreciate that. Yeah, well, I think that the apple pie could be my new favorite though. Like when you microwave that for like 10 to 30 seconds, I'm not even joking you, like this could change your life. Like it's literally life changing. Like you mix, if you want to have that with on its own or have that with like a creamy, I don't know if you eat the creamy nowadays, it's pretty trendy, right? Bro, it's like, whoa, like I'm addicted. Like I'm literally, I've been saying to my girlfriend, I'm having like one a day at least, you know? So give
Right.
the apple a try, you know? I think that's a game changer, but I appreciate that. And, you know, for us, you know, we love hearing obviously from the retailers like yourself. Like, do you have any suggestions for Nutrabolics, flavor wise, or even idea wise? Like, what would you, what advice could you give us?
Man, very humbling of you, Jason. Thank you. Take it for what it's worth. I don't know if it's a legit idea or not, but I'm fascinated again with the longevity, health and longevity space, right? There was a couple, I'm sure you've been paying attention to it too. There was a couple ingredients south of the border that had anti-aging claims. And I think it's going through a bit of a change now with the FDA getting involved with some of the phase 1 trials that now involve some of those ingredients. But I'm fascinated by anti-aging as a supplement category in the next couple of years. I'm still fascinated with nootropics as well to see how that evolves over the next couple of years as well. I just think it's just the beginning as these technologies. That's what I view these supplements as. They're literally it's a technology, like the formulation and how it comes together and the impacts that you get from it, the benefits that you receive from it. It is literally a technology. And I think the technology over these next 3 to 5 to 7 years, you just see all this innovation, right? 20 years ago, I bought my first protein from Walmart. We had 2 flavors. We had chocolate and we had vanilla. That was it, right? And it was chunky and clunky, and it wouldn't dissolve, and you'd stomached it, and you just wouldn't, because that was it back then, right? Today, the flavor profiles, just the quality, like what we, again, hydropura is pretty much the gold standard. Like it's the highest level purity of protein. Like this product, this technology wouldn't have existed 20 years ago. So what does protein look like even in a couple of years from now? What happens to the dissolvability? I'm just fascinated, right? So, and I think you guys do such a great job with the innovations, and I wouldn't be surprised, man, in a couple of years. I won't be surprised if you guys have 24 flavors on the shelf. I won't be surprised at
Well,
all.
I think Rodney hears from me at least once a week about flavors, so it's possible. Like it's definitely possible. Give us some insight. Like I know you're interested in sort of longevity and the mental space. Like, what are your thoughts about fasting? Do you do fasting?
It's interesting. I try not to have an opinion. I feel like we're just on the cusp of all of this, right? And I think to say, hey, this is the diet or this is the protocol for longevity, I think we're like just a few years too early just yet. Like I think the preliminary data looks really promising, but then data comes out and it goes, well, I don't know, right? Like yes, no. So I think the data is constantly changing, and that's one thing that fascinates me is like the quality of the scientific method with the literature coming out. I don't want to get too nerdy on this stuff, but I'm excited for what the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 FDA trials in the US look like for the coming technologies coming, especially in our space. I'm fascinated with baseline dopamine. So not just dopamine, but baseline dopamine. If I take a huge hit of caffeine, I know I have a spike of dopamine and then a crash of dopamine typically, right? And so how do I raise my baseline dopamine over the course of say 4 to 6 hours and maybe minimize that up and down, right? So I'm fascinated with how I can do that, hence the ice tub, right? And there's I think diets are I have a genetic I did a genetic test on what diet is best for my DNA. I did do that. Uh, Turns out Mediterranean. I Is it accurate, or do I do the same DNA test in 2 years and it tells me it's something else, right? So these are some of the things that I've done. So I'm really curious, about my diet, ice tub, obviously, and then little things too, like what happens to testosterone when you ice tub right before a workout, right? There's little things out there. Dr. Huberman, big fan of Dr. Huberman. If you don't know about Huberman Labs podcast, I nerd out on that all the time. So longevity that's the main reason why I'm in the gym typically. That plus meditative purposes, escape from the chaos. I'm sure you get the same experience, right, Jason? So, but those are some of the things that I focus on for sure. Bulletproofing my limbs and being able to have VO2 capacity, which is directly correlated to longevity as well. There's a couple of things that I could nerd out about, but yeah, exercise, diet, ice tub, the basics will get you covered.
Nice. I'll share some insight on something that I've been doing for mental clarity that's working for me, not necessarily based on the scientific studies, but one of the things that I've noticed that I suggest people to try is I've been doing the fasting, right? I've been doing the fasting and I've been drinking carnivolic, not because I make carnivolic, but because I actually feel amazing, right? Because thing is that when you eat, right, like let's say you have a meal, right, I get tired. Like if I have a big meal, I'm tired. So I find when I'm fasting, I'm very focused, right? I'm very focused, I'm very alert. So I feel like most of my productivity is getting done when I'm fasting in the morning. And one of the things I do, and it's not like a huge upper where it has a crash, is I'll just drink the carnivolic while I'm fasting. Like I'll have, some water, this and that. But I find that like I'm so freaking like dialed in that like some people, like I fast until 3, right? And some people say, oh, that's a long fast, right? And I don't eat until 8 or the night before, right? So it's like a 20-hour, it can be whatever that works out. So I think it's 20 hours. But the productivity that I have during the fast, drinking the carnivolic in the morning is unbelievable. Like I think, giving that a shot, even just like once in a while and seeing how you feel, because as soon as I have that meal or I start eating, I notice I'm not as like on, like I notice I start to kind of get comfortable, when you're fasting and you're kind of on, and especially with just the mild carnivolic, like throughout the fast, like I don't get these cravings. I find it really, really helps. So I'm always suggesting people, even if you just try it once, right? Like even if you just try, like maybe 3 is a little late for you, but try it and see if it does anything for you, because I've found that this is one of the best things that I've brought to myself in like the last decade. Honestly, like it's changed the game. I used to eat, like early in the morning. Now I just cut it right out. And I'm finding that like my productivity is like on like a whole nother level. So
I can relate. Actually, I don't consume food until about 1. So I'm not too far off from you. And if I do break a fast before that happens, but I'll actually take a scoop of Hydropure, and it's typically after a workout, and then I'll break the fast that way. But it's funny you say that. I take anabolic state in the morning, and then sometimes I'll take Supernova before the workout as well. So I do have breakfast on occasion. I'm not perfect, but 9 times out of 10, I'm not eating till lunchtime.
Nice. Yeah, no, for me, I'll have my meal, and then about an hour later, I'll have 2 scoops of Supernova, and I'll hit some weights.
Oh,
Yeah.
baby, 2 scoops.
Bro.
You're not playing any games.
Oh, I'm all about the games. Like you don't even know. That's just the beginning. I'm a bit of a caffeine. I take a lot. I'll have my Vitabolic then. I'll have my Agro. I'll be drinking Carnivolic during my workout. Like it takes me but
Okay, what's the best way to use aggro? I read the directions, I follow the directions. Is there something different? Like, do you have a little trick with
I
that at all?
aggro right before I work out with a meal, right? I find that like I'll have it like right before I train, so I'll have it at like 3 o'clock, right? But I don't really like to take pills on an empty stomach, so I'm kind of trying to time my pills when I'm eating my meal. So
Mm.
I've got my Bolic, I've got my aggro. Any other pills I'm taking are going to happen like around 3 o'clock, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I noticed in the directions,
Yeah.
can I ask a detailed question? So in the directions on off days, it's like mid-afternoon, uh, best time to take with a meal mid-afternoon. Uh, what's the theory behind
I,
that?
I think the theory behind that is
I'm really putting you on the spot. My thought was,
okay, let's,
you,
let's just be honest. I didn't write that script. That was from
yeah,
Rodney. That question would be more so because Rodney deals like he's the one that's dealing with our consultants and our different people that are working with us on the, like that's his
he's a
lane.
mad chemist.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
his lane. I'm more on like I'm the guy that they'll send the products to, and I'll tell you straight up if it tastes good, if it works. Like I'll compare it. Because
Oh,
like
you're the guinea
yeah,
pig.
yeah, like people don't realize this, but like I will literally try all the fucking proteins of my competitors, and I will literally make sure that ours is like again like right in there. I'll be the one trying all the pre-workouts. Like I don't take any of our competitors lightly. Like I will try it and I'll like say, okay, yeah, this guy did a really good job at this, but we can beat him at this. Like I'll say, like there's certain people in our industry where it's like that's where I kind of come in and like, hey, well, let's do this or this or this to the product. So
Nice.
I think for the aggro, I think it's more so um, a preference thing on when you take it. Like you could take it in the morning, you could take it in the afternoon. Um, but for me, I just like to take it with food in the afternoon. So I think we have to circle back on to get a direct answer on that with Rodney next time I speak to him or you speak to him. But
It gives me a chance to harass him, so that's good. I'm cool with that.
so do you have anything coming up that's exciting and new that you could share with us?
Well, I think the big thing for us is we're focused primarily on our two store opens mid-March. I can't provide a date just yet for anybody in Calgary. My apologies. Construction can delay things, so if you say a date and then all of a sudden a delay happens, and man, every 24 hours there's a delay somewhere. I think our flooring, for example, at our Deerfoot location, just needs a couple extra days. Like, what do you do, right? So I'm hesitant to say a date, but in March, at some point, there will be two more Calgary locations. We're also working on four other locations at the moment. I can't say too much, but at the end of the day, I mentioned to our goals, right? Over the next 3 to 5 years, I'd like to see us with 30 plus locations, and we're only a small franchise. We're a small part of the puzzle, right? There's other franchisees like us that have those kind of lofty goals. So I actually have to commend Roger. Roger, I mean, uh, we now have over 100 locations, as Supplement King customers should know, right? We had a big sale a month ago. I actually have to commend that guy. I mean, the way that he built the brand and the business around it. He makes it easy for us to have these lofty goals and to be doing what we're doing now, right? It sounds impressive. Ooh, all these stores in a short period of time, but I actually have to give credit to Roger and Supplement King Canada on that.
Nice. Well, I'd love to see one in my neighborhood out here. I live in Cole Harbor in Vancouver, so just putting it out there.
I don't know where John Anderson is, but no pressure, but a little bit of pressure. I'll text him. I'll send him a little text.
Yeah. So for the next, little bit, you're working on the stores, and obviously that's going to require a lot of attention. Do you have any sort of tips for people out there, performance-wise, things that, whether it's supplements, whether it's anything at all, maybe even a book? How do people, get their performance up? Maybe they've reached a plateau. What advice you have for them?
Well, I was just like I was talking about earlier, I think psychology really is the key performance, especially in our performance realm, but it's key factor even to just general happiness and mental health, right? I think psychology is my main focus in my day to day, right? And so that doesn't necessarily just think positive thoughts and be happy all the time. I think that's just a little irresponsible, but I do make sure that I watch my emotional states, especially when I'm around my staff, right? We're going to hit 100 employees this year. And for me to kind of push culture as best as I can, I need to make sure that I watch my psychological state around the people that I lead, because unconsciously I give them the green lights of how to behave within the organization, right? And so I take that element to everything I do, right? Even in this podcast here, right? I just want to lead by example, and I don't want to be, slouched over and, half in it with you, right? I want to be present with you. And that's what I try and do with everybody that I come across, right? So I am very focused on, my psychological state in the day to day. Doesn't mean I don't get stressed or frustrated or angry. In fact, it happens quite regularly, but I feel like I have some better skills on how to deal with that in a healthier way, right? So especially with the upbringing that I've had, right? Quick to anger. That's what I've been dealing with for, 30 years, right? So I always suggest to entrepreneurs, personal trainers, coaches, competitors, whatever realm that you perform in, if your psychological state isn't giving, like, we all know which states are going to give us the best probability for the success that we're after, right? It's almost like we have this unconscious, we all kind of know what states we need to go into. I think if you're not in that state, entrepreneurs, if you live in there's a reason why accountants typically don't have businesses. They are very like they're not going to take a risk, right? The fear like it's more compelling than the actual excitement of the opportunity, right? Entrepreneurship is an emotional game, right? Think about the fear for a lot of people thinking, oh my God, I'm going to open up 4 stores in the next 6 months. Like, how much cash do you need? How much inventory is that? How many people do I got to hire? And all of a sudden, a lot of people will get anxious. They'll focus on the 100 things, right? So I urge more emotional awareness and emotional fitness. The same approach as if you're to your physical fitness.
That makes sense. And I mean, for people out there that obviously, experience, like, you're an entrepreneur and let's say you experience a failure, right? Like, even Nutrabolics, like part of innovation is, we launch, people don't know this, but like we're prepared to launch 4 products, let's say, and get 1 winner.
Yeah.
Like,
wow.
there's 3 that are going in the trash. Like literally, like they ain't gonna last 5-10 years. Like, for us, it's like, we know that, if you see a Nutrabolics product that's lasted 10 years, it's a success. But there's not like that many that make it 10 years. Sure, we can have a run for 1 or 2 years or 3 years or 4 years, but like to go a whole decade for a Nutrabolics product is a big deal, and so for us, I mean, what, we obviously are prepared for knowing that, being in business 22 years, we know that, hey, listen, we're going to launch 4 products and only one of these is going to make it 10 years. That's sort of like the rough estimate. But like, how do you deal with sort of like, say, a failure? Like, say you bring something in, maybe it doesn't sell, or maybe even a store doesn't do so well. Like, what's your sort of, way to kind of get out of that funk and, stay positive?
Yeah, and I think first things first, I don't want to be too naive, because I think a lot of people are in a tough psychological space. A problem comes up, and then it sticks. It sticks, and I see that a lot with operators today, right? It just sticks, and they have a hard time moving past it, and then it affects so many other elements of their life, right? So I see that quite a bit. I dwell, but I know the sooner I can move past that, the more I can get back to the productivity side of things, right? So I don't dwell too long, to be honest. And I am pretty solutions based, but at the end of the day, I've gotten pretty good at. So for example, we've had businesses not our Supplement King business, but we've had other, like we've been in oil and gas construction, for example. You know, this is 10 years ago. And I know what it's like to lose hundreds of thousands of dollars operationally in a single year. Just think about the emotional like impact, right? For me at that scale, at that time, you know, that made huge impact. So how do you move past that in a healthy way, and then, you know, make decisions to get back on the other side, you know, to have positive cash flow again. So I think for me, you know, it's almost like we feel responsible to dwell for a period of time. Like, oh man, I fucked up here. I should probably like feel shitty about it for as long as possible, because that's the responsible thing to do. But I actually think the sooner you can move off the dwelling and then get back into, you know, focusing on something you can do right now, something productive that might even make, if it even excites you too, even better, because then you can get out of that state even faster. That's a double dip as far as I'm concerned, right? So I don't dwell that long. There's still moments where I might get pissed off for, you know, a hot minute or two, but I've gotten better at being aware of it in the moment, sitting with it maybe, and then just, I know if I just focus on something that I can do in that minute, like right now, and there's always something at this scale, man, I'm sure you experience the same thing at the scale Nutrabolics is at. There is always something that you can do if you wanted to. There's always something, right? And so it's therapeutic.
Yeah. No. Great. No, listen, Chris, man, you've been an amazing guest. And listen, we really appreciate all your support. I appreciate you coming on the show. I wish you nothing but the best, you know, with these stores. And, you know, it's exciting times, man. 2024 could be the biggest year yet.
And I just want to reiterate too, because I just feel I'm really compelled. Like, it's super important to me to communicate. Like, Nutrabolics is they are the leaders in impacting local entrepreneurships. Like you guys are excellent to deal with, and I just can't emphasize it enough. The support you guys get. You know, I made the joke earlier about being in Dollar General. Like, there are supplement companies that feel like they just need to be everywhere all at once. And I respect that. But at the end of the day, some of these companies that sell these supplements, they're not as local focused as some of, you know, again, you go into a store, you buy a Nutrabolics product in a Supplement King, and that goes back into the local community, 100%.
Listen, man, that's very thoughtful, very appreciative. You know, I love hearing it. We also come from, you know, me and Rodney we started out working as salesmen at a health food store, right? So we totally get it. Like it's not like I'm coming to this industry from some other industry or some other background. Like, we understand the grassroots, we know what it takes. So we try our best, you know, every day to support, you know, and be there and sort of, you know, do what we can. You know, obviously time isn't an issue a lot of the time, but we do what we can with what time we have. And, you know, hearing that means a lot. You know, we'll just keep doing what we're doing. And listen, Chris, honestly though, like, what you've done with 11 stores is in this period of time, like, congrats, man. Like, that deserves a round of applause. Like,
Thanks, man. Thank you. I think for both of us, this is just the beginning. I'm really excited to see where we are in 10, 15, 20 years. I'm really excited to see where Nutrabolics is in 10, 15, 20 years.
I agree. Have yourself a great day, man. Thanks again for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Anytime, man. 2 a.m. I'll get up at 2 a.m. We'll do a show. Anytime. You name the time and place. I'm there.
All right. Okay.
Take care, Jason.
Take care.